Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Bigoted Dude Gets Arrested Because He Thinks a Woman Can't Fix Computers. Back in 2006, I worked for one of those big box stores that had an IT desk, formerly known as Nerd Herd, where people could bring devices in to get serviced if there was a problem. We were located in Columbus, Georgia, which is right over a bridge from Phoenix City, AL. This is important because, where our store was placed, we would normally get a lot of servicemen and women coming up from Fort Benning who were generally pretty cool. But we would also get folks, mostly from Alabama, who were, let's just say, slightly unfavorable to folks of a certain skin color or gender. No offense to those who live in AL who are totally awesome. You know who you are. Now, I'm a 5 feet 1 inch girl who, at the time, weighed a total of 120 pounds soaking wet. I was practically a hobbit. I was also one of the lead technicians in the department. I was the one the new hires went to if they were confused or couldn't troubleshoot certain problems. The team I worked with was amazing. The general manager of the store was great and the supervisor of my department was the man. I would regularly go out for drinks with these people. One of the best places I've ever worked, even though it was retail. One day, I'm working the counter to check customers in and do evaluations and diagnostics to give an estimate of what the repair price would be. In comes, let's call him Joe. He's wore a cut-off t-shirt, worn denim jeans, and a baseball cap with a Confederate flag on it that just barely covered his business in the front, party in the back haircut. I am not one to judge on looks. I've had plenty of people come in looking exactly the same way this guy did who have been an absolute delight to work with. Never judge a book by its cover, kids. But I still have my defenses up, just in case. I really hoped it wasn't going to go the not-so-friendly route. I was unfortunately wrong about Dear Joe. Joe walks up to the counter with his PC tower and practically slams the unit on the desk. Joe, I need this fixed. It's broken. Me, okay, sir. Let me have a look and I'll see if I can. Joe cuts me off and stares at me with a disgusted look on his face. Joe, excuse me? Me, if you give me a moment, sir, I'll be able to take a look at your computer and... Joe, or hell no. It was at this point that I realized where this was inevitably going to go wrong. Me, unfortunately, sir, I won't be able to give you an estimate if you don't let me diagnose your computer. Joe, there is no way in hell a woman knows about computers. I'm not letting you touch my computer. Get me the manager. Oh, yes. I thought. This is going to be ducking awesome. I'm sure he wanted to talk to the general manager of the store, but I couldn't resist. Cue malicious compliance. I could have pulled the I'm the manager thing, because I was one of the senior staff, but my direct boss was actually out back working on repair projects and I couldn't help but get excited about how this was going to go down. Me, as lovely as sweet tea, of course, sir. Right away, sir. Mike, my supervisor, the guy who ran our department and not the general manager of the store, was elbow deep in a motherboard replacement when I walked in and gave him the biggest, shit-eating grin. Me, hey, Mike. There's a guy out there asking for the manager. He looks at me confused because he was just supervisor, but I then proceeded to tell him exactly what was waiting for him out front. His face split into the brightest smile. He then proceeded to walk out to the front. Have I mentioned that Mike is a 6'3", 280 pounds black man who looked like he could eat a Mack truck for lunch? He was such a big, lovable teddy bear. We all adored him. The moment Mike stepped out, the customer freaked. Mike, hello, sir. I hear there's a problem. Joe lost it. It started with a duck no before devolving into a racist tirade that I have never witnessed in my life. I'm from Massachusetts, so this was awful, yet amazing to watch. Like a car crash. I just couldn't look away. Not that we have no racism in the Northeast, but damn. Joe kept screaming, using the nastiest slur, you know the one, over and over again while staff and customers alike watched in blatant horror. Security ended up having to come over to try to calm the man down. Our entire security team was black as well, so, naturally, Joe went even more crazy. Eventually, the police had to be called because the man was threatening me, calling me a witch, and threatening security and my boss, using that word that is not okay. My general manager got called out of his office and immediately called the police to have the man removed. God bless whichever dispatcher who received the call was, because they dispatched 2 black officers to the scene. Me and my general manager were literally the only white people involved in this train wreck aside from bigoted Joe, and I watched with unbridled glee as Joe was cuffed and taken away by the police. Watching Joe foam at the mouth as he was dragged away made my whole week. Thank you for the entertainment, bigoted Joe. The next one is titled, Neckbeard Tries to Buy Inferior Parts to Keep Money for the Build, Malicious Compliance Intervenes. Since my last story went over so well, I guess I will share another from my time at MacroPoint. Now, some people believe the customer is always right. This is a problematic belief. The truth is, most of the time customer is an entitled twat, but you're supposed to perform admirably anyway. This gets harder when you're dealing with anyone who thinks they know something that they do not. So a guy comes into my department and I greet him at the carpet. I tended to be Johnny on the spot whenever someone came in. Welcome to our build your own department, I'm Annoy Mouse, what are we putting together today? The man scoffs at me and says, a computer, obviously. All attitude. He was neckbeard, wearing a My Chemical Romance shirt, pants so tight that he had a mushroom top, and mismatched shoes. This was obviously on purpose as both shoes were clean, just didn't fit his look. I didn't take much time examining him. My dad had always told me I gotta get the measure of a man with a glance and look him in the eye the whole time. He literally used testis on this crap. Turn, look, then tell him what cars we saw in that split second. I was decent enough at it, but not great. I instead would tell myself little lyrics on the fly to remember key details. It's become a life habit. I explain this to point out that I wasn't staring at his look, so I'm pretty sure the snickering hens in the general section, who didn't work for us, were the source of his ire about being judged about his look. He took my smile as me thinking something was funny. I feigned ignorance, like I didn't hear him, and then when he asked again, I apologized and asked him to speak louder. Told him I was hard of hearing. This relaxed him a bit, thinking I couldn't possibly have heard the hens giving him the business. I did, but I wasn't going to show it. With an attitude he handed me a list and leaned forward shouting, I don't wanna be sold nothing. Here's what I need, go get it. I look at the list and it's pretty thorough. Names of items and SKU numbers. I'm like, bet. This looks like a full build, good money, though a lot of them I identify as cheaper parts. I tell him it'll take me a few minutes and invite him to take a look around in case he sees anything else he might need. He rudely says he'll wait there and he's ain't buying crap else, so don't try none of my snake oil salesman crap. I smiled and say, oh no, but it's so good for the joint and muscles. He didn't think it was funny, so I just walked away and got his stuff. Halfway through grabbing his items I realized that he only looked at prices and not what each thing did. His build had an AMD processor, but he wanted an Intel board. The case he wanted was slim and the video card he wanted would not fit. He needed lower profile, though the Intel board had integrated graphics, so I was sure why he picked a card. Also, the power supply he wanted was of lower quality and wattage than the one that came with the case. All in all, I was compelled to ask what the hell he was trying to build. I gathered everything quickly and brought it up, going over each piece with him and getting his approval. I then asked him if all of this was for the same build, which he replied with a something smart like, wow, how observant of you, or something like that. I smiled and tried to inform him that some of those parts would not work together, but he simply cut me off. Listen, I don't need you to try to upsell me. I've been building computers for a while, I know what I'm doing. He did not, and I wanted to question the validity of his claim. I asked him then if he would like to hear about our return policy, just in case. He got belligerent, telling me he knows what he's doing and how dare I treat him like he's stupid just because of the way he look. Granted, he did look stupid, but I think his ire was more for the cute girls giving him crap and some insecurity versus anything I said. Alrighty, you are not interested in our return policy or our extended warranty policy, right? I confirmed. We are supposed to ask about the warranties with everyone, but I figured he was not going to take kindly to that, so all I wanted to do was cover my bases. Warranties are for suckers, do I look like a sucker? He snapped. Yes, he did, but I wasn't going to say that. I just smiled at him and asked if I could double-check his list to see if I got everything. I whipped out my phone and took a picture of everything, along with the list. I knew most of this was coming back. And let him go about his day. I didn't even sticker it. I knew what was coming. 2 days later, Neckbeard shows back up, muffin top, 2 different pairs of shoes, and an anime shirt that made Goku look like he had a fisheye head. He looked embarrassed and angry. He had with him someone who I at first thought was his girlfriend, a little Latino woman who I was certain was either blind or a gold digger, but turned out to be his sister. Absolutely no resemblance. She was friendly and told me she was trying to build a gaming computer to play Crysis. I was a little incredulous, young and, to be honest at that time did not think girls played games like that, so I turned to him and said, "Crysis," and he shrugged. Little lady stepped up and reiterated herself, with a bit of friendly mocking cause she knew what I was thinking. Apparently she got crap for being a gamer girl. I just shrugged and told the truth. There was no way in hell that previous build was gonna play Crysis very well. The brother, whom I'm gonna call Neckbeard from here on out, had an attitude. He said yeah and handed me another list, this one similar to before. He made no explanation for his previous mistake and just told me to get the new items, along with the same line about not upselling him. I looked at the list and knew right away that build wasn't gonna play that game very well. I mean, I could get him there with a $1,500 build, barely, but this was something like $900 and that video card, don't remember what it was not gonna cut it. I told him so, and that maybe he should look at the game's specs online, which would help him make a better decision. He told me he had done his homework and to just get what he said. I looked at his sister, pleading, and told her that I could come up with a system that was both affordable and would run the game decently. He interjected and got mad, threatening to get another salesperson. And said okay, but I knew his ass would be back again. As I'm getting his stuff, I hear him, away from his sister, on the phone. He's telling someone that he wants to finish this up and get the build done. Apparently his parents had allocated some money for this and he was trying to get a cheap system so he could keep the rest of the money. A real D-bag move, but not my problem. I gathered what he asked for and sent them on their way, didn't tag this stuff either, it was either coming back or could go to the pool. I saw Neckbeard 2 days later with little sister in tow, and his parents. He was not dressed like a disaster that day. His parents did all the talking. There was no list. They told me that they'd trusted their son to get this done, cause he was good with computers, but the game wasn't working properly and they were trying to get everything together for their daughter's birthday, which had apparently passed after the first time I met Neckbeard. The parents then told me they only had $3,000 to spend on this computer. They'd looked up the average price of high-end gaming rigs, and wanted to buy an Alienware, but were convinced by their son to build it themselves, possibly so he can control what they spent. $3,000. This man was trying to snake his parents out of like $2,000 with these shitty builds. They told me to put together something that would work, and I smiled at Neckbeard and said, with a $3,000 limit? They confirmed and I grinned. Cue malicious compliance. I tell them I can definitely do that, and ask if they want to come with me and discuss each part, piece by piece, and why I think they need it for the game. I go with them and I build a $3,000 system. Neckbeard is losing his crap. Why do we need this? Why do we need that? But no one will listen to him because of his previous failures. I built a system that I'd be proud to own. And got it around 2,700 and then explained the warranty and how they could have us build it and have parts and labor on that warranty. Of course they took it. Neckbeard was upset cause we went a little over, and I even talked his parents into getting a boss-ass monitor for the game. These, I certainly stickered. If Neckbeard hadn't been such a dick, I'd have built him a system that could play the game and he would have been able to go about his fiendish plan and keep his parents' change. Instead, he got nothing and his sister got a build that she loved and a case that she apparently always wanted. A white Antec with purple fans. Moral of the story is, don't be a dick to your salesman. Tell them what you want and need and they will accommodate most times. Or at the very least, know what the heck you're doing. If he'd known computers like he'd claimed, this wouldn't have been an issue. Either way, I'm glad things didn't work out for him. And this time, there were no returns. The last one is titled, Boss Presents a Shitty Contract and Says I Can Quit If I Don't Want to Sign, So I Do. I used to work for a local youth center, kind of. I won't name them. The story goes like this: the man who ran the center knew a friend of my family, who told him I was going to college for graphic design and video. He calls me and lets me know that under the umbrella of the youth center he wanted to revive an old local magazine, and wanted it to be run by youth. I was 18. He said that as well as a physical magazine, there was going to be a video component that would go on YouTube and the website, and that I would be a great fit for the team to help with this. He also said that they would assist in getting all participating youth started towards their own business. I was thinking, wow, I'll have a job right out of college, this is great. I was promised on-the-job training, an eventual pay increase to $18 per hour, and a lot of other stuff. I started at $14 per hour. I won't go into every detail, but basically I was told that I was to write articles for the magazine as well, as all employees would do this. No problem. Slowly but surely we built a small team. I recommended a friend from college, who would eventually become the editor. Let's call her editor. Another person who would become my friend was hired, and edited a lot of videos I worked on. We'll call him director. And there was also a sound technician, named Rapper. There were other employees as well, but the four of us were the main magazine crew. The rest helped but mostly worked at the youth center for youth reasons. Now that I've explained that, we can get into it. Over the course of my employment, a lot of shady things happened. The center claimed that they would help us start our own businesses, and we should get business licenses and they would contract us. In reality, this was a way for them to avoid paying taxes, and making us do it instead. As well, there were a lot of make a video about blank orders, but no instructions until the finished video was handed in. We did stories on a lot of cultural topics, so this could be really difficult at times. On top of that, the boss was almost never there, so when we had questions we basically had to figure things out ourselves. Despite all of this, I was loyal. I worked there for 2 years, and I'm confident that I was a major reason we were going for a while, because whenever somebody messed something up in video, I was the one they came to fix it. Sometimes with hours left to deadline. I filmed almost all events we covered, I knew where all of the files were for everything, the passwords, and a lot more. People asked me about all of these things when they forgot. I also managed the YouTube page all by myself. But for whatever reason the boss started to trust us less and less. Locks were changed on the doors so none of our keys worked. Director and I were placed in an office where somebody was constantly watching us. Our time cards were argued about, and we were accused of only playing video games while at work. We played our Switches at lunch. I think he had trust issues because he's a sketchy person. He had the kind of fake being friends with everybody in case you need a favor view on life. Director and I started to be blamed for bad camera framing when we weren't even at the shoot. This got to the point where we were told to take extra training, but editor, who was mostly responsible for these mistakes, was treated like a queen. Even if I complained about something editor had done, nothing would ever come of it. Then comes December 2018. Boss calls a meeting. He tells us all that the magazine will be transitioning into its own business separate from the youth center. Here, on top of video and writing duties, we will be searching for contracts, and driving to other cities in our province to film. He then proceeds to hand us a contract that we're required to sign if we continue to work for him. This contract sucks. There were a lot of things in there that would screw us over, but the main things were that while working for them we wouldn't be allowed to conduct our own contracts, and if we quit, we can't work in our field in any of the whole province for 6 months. On top of that, our job titles would be changed to interns and our pay would stay the same even though we were promised $18 per hour. Literally all of us were mad about this contract, but whenever we brought up problems, he would say, "This is non-negotiable. It's a perfectly normal contract." He also accused me of trying to find loopholes whenever I tried to discuss it. I have no idea about contracts, but if you're claiming to start youth up on their own businesses, this is not how you do it. He let us know that to aid with the transfer to a new business he was in talks for a new contract worth a lot of money, but didn't disclose how much. Probably so we wouldn't feel entitled to be paid for more doing all the work. He gave us a week to look at the contract. After that there would be 1 week until Christmas. I spent all of the week dreading the next Monday when I had to make a decision. I begged boss to change it, but he stood firm. He even indicated that if we weren't happy with it we might as well quit. This is important. Then, on the Friday evening, I noticed that my job is listed on a job board. I'm shocked. I check Facebook, the magazine website, and everything. My passwords are removed. I have no login. He is trying to strong-arm me into signing. Then on Monday my girlfriend and I get breakfast before I go in, when I get a text from director letting me know he got fired upon walking into the building. My gears start to turn in my head. If he fired director, then he's definitely counting on having me to do all of the work still. I know that I won't get fired because I'm the only person capable of making videos properly. So instead of going to work, my girlfriend and I type of a letter of resignation, walk over to Staples and print it out, and bring it over to work. Before I give it to him he greets me and lets me know that he fired director. The casual way he talks to me about it confirms he expects me to stay. But, he did this to himself by listing my job, and arrogantly stating that we should quit if we didn't like the contract. So I hand him an envelope which has my letter in it. What's this, Aqualink 97? My letter of resignation. He is shocked, but accepts. I think in that moment he finally realized that his actions have consequences. Then he walks inside. I say goodbye to everybody, hugs all around, pack up my stuff, then find him crying in the sound room. I talk to director later, and he tells me that his mum was connected to boss's huge paying contract, and that he actually hadn't had the contract yet. Director's mum was really upset, and since they hadn't signed anything yet she pulled some strings and got director the contract instead. Turns out it was worth something like $60,000. So basically the boss tried to strong-arm us into signing a shitty contract, then lost the only competent employee, and a $60,000 contract. Editor and rapper eventually quit too. Rapper decided to focus on his music career, and is doing pretty well for himself. I worked video contracts for a while until I got a full-time job again. So, as a result of all of his shittiness, and overall arrogance, boss no longer has enough money to print an actual magazine, is short-staffed, constantly going through new employees who always end up quitting, and rarely upload videos. Their videos have shitty titles too, like the title of the camera footage, and rarely have edited thumbnails. I think it's safe to say we destroyed his ambition of starting a business exploiting youth talent. Right before Christmas. And just to be clear, even though I had the effects that my quitting would have on him in mind, I also knew that the youth center was funded separately from us, so we didn't ruin any poor kids' lives. Thanks for listening.